to Paul Bernal now. He's a professor of information technology law at UEA, which I think is the University of East Anglia. Is that correct, Paul?
That's correct, yes.
Paul, thank you for joining us. What do you make of this plan, in your view, as a professor of information technology? Are you for it, against it, worried about it? Tell us your thoughts.
So, first of all, we do need to know more about what they're actually planning before we can be decisive. This is a long-term idea that's been around certainly since Tony Blair's early days. The idea that we should have digital ID, it's attractive. I mean, it's kind of makes life easier. And now we have the technology, you could scan it on your phones, it's all very simple. But there are implications for it for not just for civil liberties generally, but for the sense we have of what's our position in society. You know, are we expected to prove who we are at every moment? Are we expected to, I mean, we talk about a papers, please society where anybody can, members of authority can ask you for something and so on.
Yeah.
This provides a tool to enable that to happen. Now, we have to think, is what's going on bad enough that we need to do that? Is underage drinking such a major problem that something like this is necessary, that we bring in a whole infrastructure of IDs to make it work? Because there's another part to this, which is that if we use digital IDs, it'll be linked to a whole database of information. And when you check into your pub to prove who you are, you're kind of logging on your position. Records will be kept of all of that. We need to be sure that those records are deleted immediately. Immediately they're not needed, that they're kept securely, that they're not used for purposes that they're not intended. Because you mentioned earlier mission creep. This is an ideal opportunity for mission creep. We bring in some technology for something very simple, like proving age to go to the pub. You've then got an identity that can be used in all kinds of other situations.
You're right, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but actually there's a bigger question I think to be asked here, which you are asking, and we're asking kind of together, which is why and why now? And is this just an excuse to get it in? Because we keep hearing about, you know, pubs closing, nighttime industries under pressure, for example, and the fact that there are fewer and fewer times when you actually have to do this. I mean, okay, we only spoke to one landlord, and I'm not saying that he speaks for every landlord everywhere, but how much really is this a problem? Necessarily not having ID documents? How much is underage drinking a problem? Many underage people are not interested in alcohol anyway. They're interested in drugs, or they're interested in other nefarious activities on their phone or whatever. So I worry that this is the excuse being used, saying, oh, we want to protect young people, but actually it's opening the door to using digital ID for lots of other things. And as we've seen, I mean, you're quite literally the expert, Paul, but what we see time and time again is government IT projects that don't work. They don't work properly, they don't work efficiently, they're far too expensive, and also loads of information kept on people that doesn't need to be kept, and is used, and during COVID, for example, was often used to label people, to say, well, they're a vaccine skeptic or a lockdown skeptic. There were government units that were used in order to keep tabs on people, and that's what I worry about. You might say that's all pie in the sky stuff, but actually it's not, because it all happened.
Yes, it does all happen, and there's another side to that as well. In this day and age, it is almost certain that the contracts for building and running the systems like this will be made out to some corporation that we don't have any control of either. I mean, we've already seen the NHS data system is now being effectively passed on to Palantir, which is a big American surveillance company. So we don't just have the risk of government or other authorities getting access to this data. We have the risk of it going to corporate and other groups who have their own agendas and their own ways of getting value from the data, because that's the bottom line here for a lot of these. It's the bottom line. That is, you can gather data, you can make an immense amount of money out of that data, somehow exploiting it, using it to train AI systems, using it to essentially get a grip on what we're all doing. I mean, this is mostly about managing people's behavior. And we should be careful. Is that really the direction we want to be going?
There are people who worry about the social capital. What was it called? Social something. It's like in China they have a social...
social credit.
Social credit, that's it. Sorry, it went out of my head there. This idea of social credit, this idea of monitoring people's behaviour. I mean, I would worry, and I don't think I'm being alarmist here. I don't think I'm being irresponsible by saying, right, well, we have clocked that you showed your digital ID 10 times this month in a pub. You are clearly drinking too much. You should be going 5 times a month to the pub, or 3 times a month to the pub because you're drinking too much alcohol, when actually it's not the state's business how much alcohol you use, how much money you spend, or whatever.
It's not just the state. It might be insurance companies, it might be employers, it might be anything. I mean, we don't know that that's going to happen. We don't know that it is happening. What we do know is that systems like this will allow it to happen. And I think that's the most important thing to understand, is that it's not just going to be used by the current government in the way they propose now. It's available then to subsequent governments of whatever flavor they might be. It's available for them to decide, okay, well, now our agenda is doing this. Oh, we've got this system here that records everybody's locations when they do this. We'll get them to check in when they go to the shops, as well as when they go to the pubs. If you're going to buy alcohol at a supermarket
or junk food,
we'll get them to check in the same way there. So we'll lose what is a currently perfectly functional system. When you go to a supermarket checkout, they say you're visibly over 25, and then no records are kept. There's no need to have any more data, any more information about you if you're doing that, and it works. And this is my real bottom line here. Why are we doing this? What is the problem that they think they're trying to solve? Is there any evidence that there's a particularly big problem now? And I haven't seen anything like that.
I haven't seen any of that information either. I wonder what you would say to Andy in Derby. Andy's been in touch on WhatsApp. He says, "Morning, Peter. Regarding digital ID, I can see the logic and equally see the reasons to be fearful, state overreach and or lack of IT security, for example. But if we were to use it to identify those not allowed to be here, and then this is the crucial bit for me, there was action to remove those people with no right to be here, then I would reluctantly support the idea. However, I have zero confidence that my caveat would be met." There are people, and a lot of our viewers and listeners are really interested in immigration. They're really interested in the unfairness around it, the fact that there are a lot of people here illegally when they shouldn't be, and concerned, I think, about legal immigration as well. That, certainly in Andy's view, would be a way that it actually could be used, in his view, positively. I wonder, is that enough for you?
It's certainly not enough for me, because I don't think it would work anyway. Because if you are operating on the fringes of our normal society, you're not going to go and check in a pub. You're not going that's not where you're going to go and drink. You're not going to go to a restaurant which has a check-in facilities. You're going to live on the edges of society as you do already, because if you're here illegally, you know that you might be.
Well, there are lots of ways to catch you already, yes.
Yeah, there are lots of ways to catch you already. This won't make any real difference. And this will also encourage, effectively, a black market in fake versions of this. Now, they like to, I think people like to imagine that because it's digital, it's not fakeable. It's not like you would have a fake driver's license. I mean, everybody knows that teenagers use fake IDs through they're 18 to drink in the pub and things like that. If you think we can't create a fake digital ID, you don't understand who these people are who are likely to be operating these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then if you're now relying on a digital ID to be certain, and then somebody can fake it, then you're complacent. You don't actually do what you need to do proper security. All you do is rely on the digital system. The digital system doesn't work, and you're no better off, and all you've done is restrict the civil liberties of everybody else.
Thank you so much. That's Professor Paul Bernal there, Professor of Information Technology Law at the University of East Anglia.